Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and uh, damn, I probably should have looked up what they say for Kwanzaa. Screw it. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Viva Allah Kwanzaa, depending upon your beliefs, and welcome to the first episode of Gaming Philosophy. It's a little sideshow I wanted to do that's still a part of my regular show, but it's more focused on one topic, and the overall topic being the entity that we perceive called video games. I don't really believe entity is too strong of a word to use. Prior to the 80s, video games were a little more than an oddity, much along the same vein as the moving pictures starting with the early Edison films. And since those really early days, the now dubbed movie industry has grown exponentially to be a part of pretty much our everyday lives. And video games too have followed down a similar path to the movie industry since the release of Mario, back in the 80s, spawning a brand new culture dubbed gamers, each unique in preference but all share the same common interest. Even individuals who don't play video games know, have known, or is aware of this growing phenomenon. Much like music and movies, video games have also been doing their part in helping to globally unify the entire human race. So I don't really think it's too much of a stretch to call video games an entity. When you really think about it, the movie industry has been around since the early 1900s, and well, video games have only been around for about 30 years. So it's got plenty of room to grow. Now, there's a whole lot of topics to discuss, considering the fact that an entity is built upon layers and layers, but I figured since we're already in the holiday season as it is, we might as well talk about something that pertains to that, and that being commercialism. And what better topic to start when it comes to commercialism than what everybody loves to hate? Movie-based games, or licensed video games.
Meet the most famous reindeer of all. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose.
No tears, please.
And if you
It's a
ever
waste of
saw
good
it,
suffering.
you would even say it glows.
Oh, movie license games. Really on a basic level, there's only a few things that can be really said about them. Some are good. Many terrible. And in the grand scheme of things, especially today with less and less movie-based games coming out, given that it takes a lot longer to make a video game on consoles than it does to make a movie, the license-based video game seems to be an almost unimportant, if not often shameful part of video game history that should be forgotten. But on that note, I disagree. The simple fact being economics. We as human beings are both creatures of habit as well as luxury. We become very passionate about what we love as well as what we hate. But what we also do is we all have our own individual perception as to what a comfortable environment is. And the people that we care about, we like to share that same exact environment with them. From a shallow perspective, the license-based video game holds the stigma of luring and scamming out unsuspecting family members and regular gamers for the chance of experiencing more of a film they're anticipating or one you may have already enjoyed. And to a certain degree, that is correct. However, it's arguable that with a low budget and a short window of opportunity, some great and wonderful things can happen, because in reality there are good movie-based games out there. Yet that doesn't excuse the fact that people are spending their money on something that companies are knowingly putting out that is potentially garbage. The video game industry is no different than any other industry out there. You break apart the full industry and it's basically just individual companies. And all individual companies want the same thing. They want to have a positive return on their revenue for whatever product it is that they put out. Does that make it right? No, it still doesn't, but like anything in life, anytime you pick up a product, be it a video game or shampoo, it's always a gamble as to whether you'll like it. However, there is a silver lining amidst the shadiness, and that being people spending their hard-earned money gives companies a little more wiggle room to spend on new IPs and/or already established great franchises. Take, for example, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, developed by Konami and released in December of 2000 for the PS1. Now, the PS2 had already been out for a year, but what most people seem to forget that at the time, this was new technology, making it a lot harder to develop on and costing more money to create and produce video games. Overall, The Grinch isn't a terrible game. It's similar to almost any other platformer of the era, but decent in my opinion. But I guess the question you're probably wondering is what the hell does any of this have to do with the title of this episode? Well, Hideo Kojima is a legend amongst the video game community. For those not in the know, he is one of the people who created one of the most renowned video game series of all time, Metal Gear Solid. But he's created other titles such as Snatcher and Zone of the Enders, all of which was done working under Konami. So how does all this stuff relate? Well, without running the risk of sounding condescending, it's simple really. Lower budget, higher profit concept. Basically creating an economic ripple effect. Think back to the most recent blockbuster or high-concept film that you've seen. Where do they get their budget for their films? Well, aside from massive amounts of product placement. Anyone who's ever worked on a project requiring the handling of funds knows that they work within their required budget. In the movie industry, lower budgeted films that are able to make back their budget, plus some are seen as successes because no money was lost and now they can use the extra funds for future endeavors. Now, let's take our examples, seemingly isolated at first with their only connection really being that they were all developed at Konami. However, back at the initial release of Zone of the Enders, the game came equipped with a copy of the upcoming demo for Metal Gear Solid 2. Keep in mind, this is all before the PlayStation Network as well as Xbox Live. So all video game demos that came out on consoles were either on compilation promotional discs or they were on standalone demo discs. Also keep in mind that these discs cost about the same to manufacture as a regular game disc did. So working backwards, the promotional discs help to raise awareness for the game for anyone who's never heard of it, and offers a small treat to those who have. And in the case of Zone of the Enders, for those who had no idea what Zone of the Enders was going to be, this promotional disc was invaluable in helping to launch the new IP, or helping spread awareness for those picking up ZOE without really knowing what Metal Gear Solid 2 was. And this was assisted a few months prior from the extra buffer supplied by the funds of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So, is the success of Zone of the Enders and Metal Gear Solid 2 based solely on how well the Grinch sold for the PlayStation 1? Well, no. You see, marketing has and will always play a major role in whether or not something will succeed or fail. And with any particular product coming out, there's a staggering amount of variables that need to happen in a correct order for any product to succeed. Now, in this particular circumstance though, seeing as how The Grinch came out only a few months prior to the release of Zone of the Enders, it can't really be argued that the profits gained from that particular game did to a certain degree help the launch of Zone of the Enders. So, does this mean that we should forgive every title and pick up anything that's developed, and really give game companies a free pass on all its IPs, licensed or not? No. As I stated before, a product's success is not solely based upon the successes of the past. Because if that were the case, there really wouldn't be such a thing as sleeper hits. I'm merely suggesting that these games not be shrugged off as mere cash grabs for companies, but rather look at it as, at the time, the brief amount of pain I felt, no matter how bad the game, contributed, no matter how slight, to create video game magic that will live on in all of our hearts from normal days to holidays past. Ooh. Happy holidays, everybody, and make sure to keep it classy out there.